We're live on air. You can do whatever you want, but you cannot use any expletives. I leaped literally down 3 flights of stairs. Literally, it just went absolutely
it was bonkers, wasn't it?
Viral.
Yeah.
Alan's given me the biggest spanking of my life.
Extraordinary scenes. Jeff Mostyn.
What's been your biggest ever achievement as the chairman of Bournemouth Football Club?
Well, it has to be taking the football club to the promised land, the Premier League. Because that was the platform to take the football club forward and put the club into administration. Because we discovered it had massive debts at the time.
Do you remember what debts they were?
Well, this is what I was understood to believe. Round about to HMRC.
Tell me what the vibe was like at Bournemouth Football Club when you became chairman.
Well, when I had death threats and my family had death threats, Adam afforded me, almost 24-hour protection.
Hold on. You had death threats?
Yeah. Sorry.
There's no problem at all, Jeff. Take your time, mate. Jeff, welcome to the show, mate.
Dodge, honestly, what an honour. Real honour being with you.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And we've been speaking for a while now, and we're finally here to hear the story of the chairman. Let's roll the way back. What's been your biggest ever achievement as the chairman of Bournemouth Football Club?
Well, it has to be taking the football club to the promised land, the Premier League. I think there's been great achievements. Even you could say saving the football club was my greatest achievement because that was the platform to take the football club forward. Yeah. But, in everybody's eyes, to achieve the impossible, we did it.
Yeah, amazing. So just for the listener out there who is a football fan but doesn't know the whole history of Bournemouth Football Club, what you've done from the start when you got involved, when it was Division 4 tiers down to take them to the Premier League in such a short space of time. Where did it all start and how did you get involved with the club?
So for me, it started in 2006. I got a random phone call one day from Kevin Bond, who was manager of AFC Bournemouth at the time. Kevin's been a lifetime friend of mine over 45 years now. So I'm born and bred in Manchester. Kevin was playing for Man City, who were my hometown club, and his dad was manager of Manchester City at the time. So they actually moved into Manchester next door to my best friends. That's how I got to know them. And then became part of the inner sanctum. Yeah. So, my sort of history is I only ever wanted to be a footballer. So there I am living my dream, through the bonds. And met Kevin Reeves, who's a local lad as well, to Bournemouth. And I used to drive Revo to the grounds on a Saturday, fantasizing that I was a player, in the players' car park. Yeah. And then one day, Kevin phoned me. He was manager, and he asked me if I wanted to come down and meet the chairman for lunch. So I thought, this is great. I didn't even know where Bournemouth was.
Okay.
So
you were living in Manchester when this happened?
I was living in just outside Newbury at the time. Okay. So I'd literally just moved south with my own business, but never been to Bournemouth in my life. Yeah. I've got some stories about that, which I'm sure will unfold. So I literally came down, and what I didn't realise was that the reason that the chairman wanted to meet me is the club were almost going out of business. They had massive debts at the time.
Do you remember what debts they were at the time?
So it's circa, well, this is what I was understood to believe, around about £1 million to HMRC, with a winding up notice already in place. And it was circa between $500,000 and $1 million that was needed urgently. So the chairman at the time, Abdul Jaffer, he was going to put together a consortium.
Abdul Jaffer was the chairman before you were chairman?
Yes. So he was, I became chairman in 2000, officially in 2007. Abdul Jaffer was the chairman in October 2006 when I arrived at the ground. And the whole rationale of me meeting him was he introduced me to the associate directors of the club, with a view to putting in round about 100 grand or between 50 and 100,000
of your own money,
of my own money, part of this consortium to try to save the club. So those were my first steps.
What was it you saw in the opportunity back in 2006 and 7 to be the chairman, put in 100 grand of your own money when you're seeing that this was like a sinking ship at the time?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the first thing that came to mind is I should have been sectioned, because, as you say, this was a car crash waiting to happen. My heart ruled my head. You know, I've had a love of football all my life, and then suddenly my best friend is manager of the football club, and I thought, you know, I was duty bound to try to help him and the football club. But it was almost like a Victor Khayyam moment for, you know, anybody listening that remembers Victor Khayyam. You know, I walked through the door of the football club and liked it and finished up buying it. But, you know, Christ almighty, I literally could have been sectioned because... No, carry on.
Yeah, no, carry on.
You know, it was a car crash waiting to happen, but somehow, for me, it was almost fantasy football.
Yeah.
You know, this was my one opportunity of getting involved in football. And at the time, I didn't see it as a huge risk because I was led to believe I was going to be one of a consortium of 10 people. So I thought, in for a penny, in for a pound. I just sold my own business. So, you know, had a few shekels that I thought I could put in. And, of course, I had no idea what was in front of me.
In the end, how many people did chuck in money at that time?
Well, you can forget the people that just, you know, threw in, you know, a couple of shillings.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about our supporters here. I'm talking about those that were totally committed to putting money in as part of the consortium. There were 10 people that I'd met over the period of about 3 months. So from October to January, only one person really stood solidly by my side, and that was Steve Sly. Steve Sly, local businessman, and, you know, funny stories, you know, with Steve, because, again, it's interesting with my book, you know, never judge a book by its cover, but I hope people judge this one by its cover. It's a different.
It's a good cover, by the way. We'll talk about this later. The chairman that's just going to be launched very soon. Jeff Mostyn, the chairman. Very much looking forward to having a look at that.
Thank you, Dodge. Honestly, it only arrived on Friday. It's a proof copy.
Yeah.
And God, I spent, you know, the first 2 hours just stroking it.
What about the book?
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, well, it'd take me longer than 2 hours. Yeah, it'd take me longer than 2 hours at my age, I'll tell you.
Get a bluey down. You'll be fine, Jeff.
Yeah, did it come in 5s?
Quality.
So I tell you, Steve was. I was introduced to Steve. He was an associate director, and Abdul took me down to the various boxes. Oh God, this can only go one way. I actually fear the worst here, listeners.
Quality.
So Abdul takes me down the corridor to the hospitality boxes, and he said, "This is Steve Sly, one of our associate directors." So I said, "Oh, amazing, Steve. You know, pleased to meet you." Steve was about 18 stone, you know, given an ounce, and he's got a short sleeve shirt on, shorts. He's got tattoos all the way down his arm, and when he lifted his arm, he needed his other one to lift it up because he must have had half of Brink's mat on his arm. And then he had a stoop because the rest of Brink's mat was round his neck. And I thought, Christ almighty, this is an associate director. Doesn't sort of fit the usual football bill.
That's right.
Especially coming from Manchester, you know, where I've been used to rubbing shoulders with John Bond, who's like, you know, Malcolm Allison, all those people, the fedoras, these are, you know, true, you know, Oscar Wilde gents. So then the piece de la resistance was when Abdul said, "Oh, and Steve's a second-hand car dealer." I thought, oh my God, how am I going to get involved with this? But it is true, never judge a book by its cover or the clothes a man stands up in, because Steve was by my side. He's been a Bournemouth supporter since the age
Is he still with us today?
He's still with us today, and I meet him.
I
meet him, you know, regularly. He owned St Christopher's Cars at the time, and then he's now gone back into antiques.
How much did Steve put in at the time?
Steve, you know, there were thousands, you know, thousands of pounds.
We're not talking 100 grand.
No, we're not
tens
talking
and 20s.
Yeah,
okay.
But for, you know, it's all relative.
Yeah.
You know, for Steve, his business almost stood on standstill. Yeah. While he was trying to help me save the football club.
Yeah, okay.
So we were the last 2 men standing.
What did you see then? You're going into a football club, you've put in 100 G's, Steve's beside you putting in 10 or 20 and just being a good supporter of you and the club, and this is like a community club. You've got to remember, anyone listening out there, and it only holds 11,700 people. And I'm sure, I remember going to the club and I remember getting a phone call, said, would you like to get involved in Bournemouth Football Club at the time? And I went there and I went to a home game, must have been like 2,000 people at best. I was like, my God, I can't see where this is going. So great vision from you when you look back, like 19 years on, to look back and go, Jesus, that was a ballsy move. Yeah. Tell me what the vibe was like at Bournemouth Football Club when you became chairman, the setup, the staff, the supporters, just the whole ambience of the club.
I'm silent, simply because there was no ambience. Yeah. It was like a morgue, really. The staff were incredible. We had about half a dozen key staff, including the chief executive. We've got a guy there, Mark Luther, who's still working in the finance department today. And there were times that we couldn't make the wages. So at the time, just for the avoidance of doubt, at that stage, I hadn't put any money in. Mm. It was only when I got involved that I realised Abdul couldn't pay the wages. Yeah. So I became part responsible for the wages, and the wages were about 100,000 a month. Wow. That we had to find. Okay. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, these days. Now, that's what a player's earning, while you and I have just had 5 minutes conversation. Yeah. But then, it was about 1.2 million was the overall wage bill for the players and the staff. Yeah. It was a massive undertaking, and I literally, even at this stage, I was running on adrenaline and running with my heart, not my head. Yeah. And Steve and I had to somehow find a way to bring in investors into the club. So that was my vision, not just to self-fund this.
Well, you can't.
And bearing in mind, I didn't even support Bournemouth at the time. Mm. So here's a man from Manchester,
City
comes
fan.
To Bournemouth. I'm a City fan. Yeah. I'm thinking, what am I doing? Yeah. Throwing all this money into a dark hole where I'd spent 25 years building up my own business to be successful, almost throwing it away on a football club I didn't support. That's the crazy thing. Yeah. So I'm bunging in, whatever the residual part of 100,000 a month is, we might have brought 40 in every other week, because remember, our only revenue source is on a match day. And then with limited numbers, average maybe 4,000, 4,500. It wouldn't have taken the brains of an archbishop, let alone me, to realise that you are not making ends meet. It doesn't add up. Yeah. So did I have a vision? I've got to be totally honest with you. I had no vision at all. It was hand to mouth. Yeah. Me and Steve were driving from Land's End to John O'Groats, trying to find investment, almost with a mirror. People said to me, well, how did you find investors? What told you this person could be a possible investor? And I would say I used to bring the mirror out, put it in front of their mouth. If it steamed up, they were a fucking possible, investor for the football club, because they were still alive. So
just get your checkbook out.
Yeah, exactly. And it was as hard as that. Steve has written in my book, and he said we were almost in old money. Our plans were on the back of a fag packet. Yeah. Those were his words, not mine. And that's literally, it was hand to mouth.
When did you, on your journey, when did you start seeing it change and improve with getting the right people in place, whether it was the right manager, whether it was the right commercial director? When you start building a business, as we all know, we've built businesses, you're building a squad around you. When was it when you actually look back to go, that was the year that we actually created something special, bringing in the right people?
So I think the catalyst was having to take a step back or 3 steps back and put the club into administration. So bearing in mind, my profession, was a financial advisor. And, oh my God, the story, I wouldn't even take financial advice from myself now, having bought a football club. It's probably the worst thing you could possibly do. Yeah. And we know today that you can't be a butcher, baker, a candlestick maker and buy a football club. You need to be a millionaire, a billionaire, or a consortium. Yeah. To be able to even fund one. The catalyst was we had to make a decision to put the club into administration because we discovered the best part of £4 or £5 million worth of non-disclosed debt.
My God. Okay.
So, would you go back and sue the previous owners? No, they couldn't afford a program.
Yeah.
So, there's just no point in, throwing good money after bad. And I'd already had due diligence and ignored my lawyers. This is verbatim. My lawyers phoned me and said, right, Jeff, we've done the due diligence. You need to listen. We're talking.
Yeah.
We want you to get in your car, drive as fast as you can back to Manchester. Never think about Bournemouth again in your life. And I just ignored them.
Yeah, okay.
And I might as well not have employed them because I knew what I was going to do. I was still determined to try to save the club.
Fair play to you. Fair play, Jeff. Fair play. I'll give you massive respect. Just even hearing this, we're only sort of 14 minutes in, massive respect for what you achieved just in that period there. When you go into administration, what did that mean for the football club?
It meant stability. In a very, very strange, way, because what happens in administration, you appoint the administrator. The administrator then is the person responsible for running the football club, especially economically. So you may still be chairman, but he or she, in our case, Gerald Krasner, pulling the strings. Yeah. He only has one thing in his mind. That's to find a buyer to take the football club forward.
Okay.
So the football club is now effectively for sale. But what it does, it gives you the breathing space because all debts are frozen.
Okay.
So they're not written off, but they're frozen. So instead of us getting a winding up notice every day, people that we bought kit from raiding the club shop. Yeah. Well, they're not raiding it. They're actually taking back the stuff that belongs to them because we haven't paid for it. The landlord, putting a lock on the door. You can't play on Saturday or Sunday.
Okay.
All that's frozen. And it's a shame because there's a lot of local business people that rely on the football club and their money is frozen as well.
That must have been a relief.
It was a massive relief, but in your own mind, what you have to do is try to compartmentalize the fact that you've now lost all the money that you put in. So there's no way, bearing in mind, I say in round figures, I'm paying 100 grand a month. Yeah. What I had to do before I put the club officially into administration was have a meeting with Gerald Krasner and David Hinchcliffe. David Hinchcliffe is his lawyer. So you've got the administrator, you've got the lawyers supporting all the legal aspects of it. And I had a meeting with them at Chewton Glen. And this is a funny story because I had no idea who was paying for this. It finishes up with me. If I'd have known that, we could have met at the fucking post house, or the Ibis, So Chewton Glen, I'm like, have another sandwich,
35 quid later,
which was 2 players' wages. So it was, really, really interesting. And Gerald said I had to commit $500,000 for him to take on the job.
Okay.
The $500,000 would have been his wages, his staff's wages, and at least 4 months' wages for the players and staff of the football club. Otherwise, he said, we can't just do it on a month by month. Yeah. So I committed that on top of what I'd already put in.
So you'd already put in a ton?
I'd put in
100. What else you put on top?
I was putting in 100 a month.
Of your own money?
Of my own money.
You're joking me.
Yeah, up until this stage. So you can say by the time we're into administration, it's well over £1 million, of my own money.
I don't think anyone knows this, Jeff.
Well, my wife does. So if you're listening, sweetheart, thank you for standing by my side all this time. And the housekeeper, she'll probably ask for more money now in the housekeeping.
Just a quick one. Shout out to your wife. What's your wife's name?
Rosie.
Fair play, Rosie.
Rosie, the love of my life.
Fair play, Rosie.
44 years, always by my side.
Yeah.
So
we can't be the entrepreneurs and risk takers without having someone amazing by our side.
No,
it's impossible.
No, people always said to me, what did she, think about, or did you ever think about putting in all this money and losing it? Were you worried? And I said no. And they said, why? I said, it was her money.
Cheers, Rosie. I'll get it back to you soon, I promise.
Yeah. No, I'm only joking. It's our collective money because that's what you're working hard for, for financial security for you and your family.
Yeah. But just it's a really important point here because people see chairman these days, you're a multi-millionaire, you're a billionaire, you're a trillionaire. Yeah. As a chairman, you done well for yourself, but you weren't sitting around in ridiculous amounts of money that you could afford just to lose this money. You know, this was hard-earned money that you'd built up over the previous 20, 30 years building your businesses.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Real money.
Yeah.
Like,
I was just a normal person. You know, well, I'm a humble person. My mum and dad, bless them both, always taught me, be humble, remember where you come from, and say please and thank you.
Yeah.
And I've always remained, you know, humble, which is why I have this incredible relationship with my supporters, with the players, with the staff, probably unlike any other chairman.
Agree.
So,
Everyone loves you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Like, from being around in Bournemouth for 20 years, everyone around the town loves Jeff Mostyn. And what they get from it is like, if you had a chat with Jeff, it'll make you laugh. He's got stories. What a lovely, humble guy. And what I like about you is you have time for everyone. And that's a wonderful trait. And another person who has time for everyone is Harry Redknapp. He has time for people. And it's a beautiful trait to have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, coming from you especially is, you know, again, I am humbled by your words, and you know, I do really appreciate that. And of course, the relationship with Gerald, you know, grew and grew and grew, and we were still trying to find buyers. Yeah. And the crunch came when there were a couple of people from the West Country that offered to buy the club. Like everybody else, you know, they have a photo shoot on the on the pitch or in the stands, put with a scarf over the head. It was an absolute blessing in disguise that these guys had come along and were going to be the preferential creditors or the preferential bidders for the club. And once the administrator appoints somebody preferential, then it's their responsibility to have proof of funds.
Okay.
Rosie and I disappeared to Spain. I mean, I literally couldn't wait to, you know, get out of Bournemouth at that time.
What year roughly?
The pressure. So this is 2008,
okay.
2008-9.
Okay, yeah.
So it's only a year after, you know, I'd actually taken over. And I'll never forget it. We're in Marbella and just literally having a glass of wine. The clock strikes 1 and it's Gerald Krasner. And I'm not going to, I can, you know, his voice will stay with me forever. And especially this call, he said, you know, in his Yorkshire accent, which I'm not going to try and emulate, but it was, hey lad, get your arse back to Bournemouth, the deal's fallen through, you're still at the helm.
Right.
Words to that effect.
Yeah, okay.
And anybody that's watched our documentary, Minus 17, Gerald states this. On the flight back, me and Rosie decide I cannot do any more. You know, she said, sweetheart, you've done so much over the last 18 months to try to save this football club. The figures don't add up, and £100,000 is not going to save them. Then it's another month, and another month, and another month. Yeah. I always, at this stage, you know, need to take get my composure. God, it is emotional. So that day I leave home going to say to Gerald that I cannot go on. Gerald meets me at the football club and it's a press conference. So he had a duty every month. You'll remember those days. Every month he used to have a press conference at the football club where he would bring everybody, supporters, staff, creditors up to speed, and above all else, the EFL, bring them up to speed so that they give us a stay of execution in not saying we're not getting the golden share here. You know, the club's liquidated. So I arrive at the football club. He said, right, Jeff, this is what's going to happen. We're having the press conference live. You're going to stand at the back of the room. You're going to nod when I ask you for another cheque for another £100,000, or you're going to shake your head if the answer is no. If you shake your head, I will liquidate the club live on air today. The club will not reach the weekend. And if you have a look at the statement on the front of my book, that's exactly what it says. So this is not my fantasy or me making up this. Yeah. These are the words of Gerald Krasner.
So Gerald Krasner here in the front of your book says, without Jeff, the club would not have survived the weekend. Wow.
So I'm at the back of the thing at the press conference, knowing that the decision that me and Rosie have made is that I'm not going to help the club anymore. He asked a question, I can't even hear it. my mind is all over the place. So Gerald said, Jeff, I'll just ask you the question one more time. Are you going to give me another cheque today to take the club forward? And as he's talking, again, I'm not really listening, but I knew what the question was because he told me before the press conference started. I'm thinking that 110 years of football club history is literally going to be wiped off the map while I'm standing at this press conference. There's 250,000 people in the conurbation. I think we've got about 400,000 in the conurbation now.
Yeah.
That's going to affect every single person, because I've always thought in life the universities are the centre of education, but football clubs, without any doubt, are the centre of influence.
Agree.
In any conurbation, in any city, in any town. This is wiped out. So I nodded. And he said, with that nod, you saved the football club.
Bloody hell.
And on reflection, for your first question, what's the greatest achievement that I have ever made as chairman of AFC Bournemouth? I've got to say that nod was far more relevant than taking the club to the Premier League, because it wouldn't have got past the weekend.
Yeah. That's powerful. That is really powerful. Massive respect.
Thank you.
Massive respect. Moving forwards, did you employ or bring Eddie Mitchell on board to the football club?
So the answer to that is yes. So when the club came out of administration, I'd spoken to Eddie incidentally previously to see whether, when Steve and I were looking for prospective investors.
And just let the listeners and the viewers here know who Eddie Mitchell is. Yeah.
So Eddie Mitchell is a local entrepreneur. A very high profile.
Yeah. In the property world.
In the property world. 7 developments, I believe, was his organisation. And many of the, glamorous Art Deco, Miami-style properties that you see in Sandbanks, have got Eddie Mitchell's signature on.
Yeah.
So it was understandable that I would be reaching out to him, because he was a flamboyant character. I didn't really know much of his background. Probably even today, don't know much of his background. And probably, I wouldn't want to miss an opportunity to pass on my heartfelt condolences to Brenda and the boys and Joe, his family, following Eddie's passing. Yeah. So thank you for allowing me, to do that today. So when we went into administration, and we funded it, the club was taken over by a couple of characters called Paul Baker and Alistair Savaramutu. Excuse me.
Isn't Savaramutu, wasn't he a rugby player?
He was.
I remember now, because he called me in for a meeting. This is like years ago.
Wow.
Okay, and said, "Do you want to get involved?"
Yeah. So he his background was rugby.
Okay.
But he he turned out to not be the character that we all thought.
And I clocked that straight away. Yeah. And that's what put me off.
Yeah. Well, I'm Rosie always thinks, and my PA at AFC Bournemouth, Alice Jeans, and
she's lovely,
Alice is absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
Rosie said there was 3 in our marriage, and Alice was the other one, because I couldn't literally turn left or right without Alice actually making arrangements for me. She was just incredible. Yeah. And the credit for her rise through the football club goes to Neil Blake, because Neil had said when we got promoted to the Premier League.
Neil Blake's commercial director?
No, Neil Blake was the chief executive.
He was chief executive. He went straight into CEO, did he?
Yeah, because he was Eddie Mitchell's son-in-law.
Right.
So when I brought Eddie in, but just going back a stage, Paul Baker and Alistair bought the club from me and Steve.
Yeah.
And it was on a contract. They defaulted on the contract. And I think I don't blame Paul in any way, shape or form. Paul owned one of the UK's largest logistic companies, UK Same Day. coincided with the 2008 financial crash. His two biggest, I suppose, clients were HMV and Woolworths. Both went bust, along with Zabi. So he just had it. So they defaulted on the payment. So we actually got the shares back by default.
Okay.
And
that was a blessing, by the way.
It was a blessing in disguise. And I can tell you something that I've never shared with anybody before, but we played Blythe Spartans in the FA Cup. And had we beaten Blythe Spartans, we were guaranteed around about $250,000 from the next round, because I think it was Sheffield that we were away in the FA Cup that was going to be televised. And I knew that those two were waiting for that payday to keep the club alive. Now, who knows? Had we beaten Blythe and they'd have got $250,000, we might today still be in Division 2 because those two guys might still be in charge of the football club. I don't know that for sure, but what I knew is the fact we were knocked out of the cup was the catalyst behind the default.
Yes.
So we got the shares back, and Eddie came on board along with Brenda. They owned 50% of the shares, and I owned 50% of the shares, and I gave Steve some of my shares for all the support
and the risk that he took,
the risk he took and given me, and he was literally, as I say, by my side. And loyalty is, for me, one of God's greatest gifts. You don't see it often, but with Jeff Mostyn, you get loyalty with it. You get me with it. Anything I do. So Eddie, before he came in, and Eddie was a shrewd businessman, and he knew that probably, he had me, by the nuts at the time, because I needed a partner, to come in to help fund the football club. And Eddie previously had said, Jeff, I'd be interested, but not until the club has wiped out its debt. So he was using his head where I was using my heart.
Yes.
And that's all credit to him. And, whilst I'm embarrassing myself saying that, I am who I am. And I can't do anything about that. So Eddie also insisted on a 1% option on my shares. So at any time he could exercise that, and he would be the 51%.
Yeah, okay.
And again, I think because my energy levels, were so low, I was just grateful that somebody was that we'd saved the club.
Yeah.
Secondly, that somebody else was coming on board to share the financial burden.
Yeah.
And that was Eddie Mitchell.
Yeah. Fair play to Eddie.
Fair play to Eddie. And of course,
he got a lot of stick. He got a lot of stick, and I found it very difficult to understand, because I would go to the games, and then I would walk the dog around, and then I would see the car park being done, because the car park was terrible, and he tarmacked the car park, and he brought it together, the club shop, and he had this vision that he had the vision and the finances to make something like this happen. Yeah. Well, I think that, a lot of things that, happen for a reason. And you've suddenly got a partner, and I say that sort of, loosely, but we are partners effectively because of our shareholding. You have somebody who has this vision of glamour. Yes.
That's his houses. You don't build, Miami-style houses, in sandbanks, unless you love the glamour and everything about, his development. And this is a compliment. It's not, absolutely. It's not being negative.
No, absolutely.
It is what it is. And if you've got a few million to share, why wouldn't you buy one of his properties? So you can't go from living on the Mall, to then, living in a prefab. Where if your wife gets out of the car, she's got to change her shoes 15 times before she gets to the front door of the football club. So one of the first things that Eddie wanted to do was tarmac the car park. And it was that you only get one chance of a first impression. I hate cliches, but I like that, because I don't see it as a cliche. I see it as a fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you only get one chance, then that's what you get. So he wanted to tarmac the car park. I'm thinking about paying wages. Not the car park. So there were always times when we saw things through, different coloured views, glasses. And that's what makes, I think, a strong partnership as well. And, he helped with the different ideas that we had. In fact, our board meetings were really strange. Him and Neil would be sitting on one side of the desk, me and Steve would be on the other. Right, who's got the best ideas for fundraising?
Yeah.
And when you talk about a vision, we all had a vision of keeping the club alive. What is the objective of this consortium or partnership? Is to keep the club alive. We didn't think about getting promoted. We didn't think about the future. The future was tomorrow. It was almost, these are the minutes. I could read the minutes of a board meeting before we actually had the agenda. The minutes were, these are the wages, how much have we got?
Yeah.
Right, date of next meeting.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
That was the struggle. And we managed to do it. We had the bricks campaign. We had the dedication, outside the front door of the football club. Have your, own dedicated
You could put your name in a brick, couldn't you? And that'd be on the floor.
Exactly.
Amazing.
And we had the wall. Mine is still there.
Yeah.
And we had the vice presidents. Vice president package of tickets for life. I think everybody had. It was about £10,000 a ticket. Bearing in mind you're in League One, at the time. Nobody thought we'd even get to the Championship. So everybody that bought these vice president tickets was doing it to support the club. And again, thank you all if you're listening.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to everybody that, donated even £5 from our supporters. All helped to save the football club.
How much did Eddie put in for his 50% shares at the time?
Very little.
Okay. And what was the deal look like?
So the deal looked like initially that he would fund the football club going forward, for those shares. And from my perspective, and I believe he got Paul Baker's shares, which in all this mix was Adam Murray.
Adam Murray, yeah.
So Adam Murray, what a wonderful man. Yeah. And he brought the consortium together. So there was me, Steve and Adam.
Adam Sharp.
Yeah, Adam Sharp as a razor blade.
Very sharp.
And also you wouldn't argue with him.
No, you wouldn't.
As a cage fighter.
Absolutely.
Well, when I had death threats and my family had death threats, Adam afforded me, almost 24-hour protection. So, these are other things.
Hold on. You had death threats?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Death threats, all anonymous. But death threats, we when I say they're anonymous, we certainly knew the focus of a couple. A couple of people felt they'd invested in the football club when they were going to buy it, and Gerald Krasner refused to refund the money because he said, that was your commitment, you didn't complete it. For peace of mind and peace of security for me and my family, I actually repaid that personally, which I shouldn't have done. And Adam said, I just would never have been able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
So those kind of things go under the radar.
No one knows this, Jeff.
Because I never I don't want to stand up and pontificate and say this was all about me.
Yeah.
This was about a group of people who were trying the hardest to take the club forward. As I say, there was Eddie and Brenda on one side, and then there was myself and Adam and Steve Sly on the other.
I bet Adam Murray wouldn't advise you to go and pay those people off.
Well, he would have, but it was a different kind of payoff.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
you definitely want him on your side.
Yeah, it was like, total payoff.
Yes.
But that wasn't my style.
How did it make you feel knowing you had a death threat on you and your wife and your family?
Well, you don't understand. I could never understand why people would think badly of me, where for the previous 18 months I was throwing money into this dark hole. But there was always this early suspicion, lack of trust. Why would somebody from Manchester come and buy our football club and then screw it? Yeah. It's all about that person making money. What you don't understand is, even in the Premier League, it's hard to make money because it all goes in the dressing room, or reinvested in investment. So it was a misconception. But Steve was the the solid man, because he's born and bred in Bournemouth. So, all the Cherry supporters, know of Steve Sly and just how passionate he was about the football club. So that was the stage where we probably saw a vision. And then the one vision that Eddie had, and, in my book, I've, praised him for this, because I'm the common denominator, of being one of the only chairmen in football history, one of only 4 chairmen in football history to have ever been chairman of the same football club in all 4 divisions.
Is that right?
Yeah. So John Mostyn, the late great John Mostyn, who's a dear, dear, dear friend of mine, told me this in the boardroom. He went on to say that, again, allegedly, Jeff, because, Marty always kept the 1% litigation, free.
Yeah.
But he said, whilst there's been 4 chairmen that have been chairman of a football club, the same football club, in all 4 divisions, he said, to the best of my knowledge, there's only been 1 chairman and 1 manager that have been manager and chairman of the same football club at the same time in all 4 divisions, and it's you and Eddie Howe.
Wow.
So that was something.
What a lovely feeling that is.
I mean, oh my God, it was just amazing. And then I just planted another bottle of red wine in front of him, and that was, Marty happy for, for the next.
What was
8
Marty's
minutes.
club? Was it Cov? I'm trying to think of what club John Mostyn was.
Watford. Was it Watford?
Was it Watford?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, it was all his.
Boys, can you have a look at what club?
Motti was.
Yeah, Motti was involved with.
And of course, he was a resident of Bournemouth.
Yeah.
He had an apartment
place down here.
Yeah.
How much did you have to pay off those people to stop the death threats?
75 grand.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So imagine you're 80 today.
Yeah.
You look phenomenal.
Thank you so much.
And so bang on the ball.
Thank you.
Like when we were chatting today, I was thinking it must be late 60s. Or you look fantastic.
Thank
Jeff.
Thank you.
But you roll back. I don't know, what we're 20, 25 now. You roll back to maybe 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Early 60s. You don't need this pressure. When I'm looking in now and hearing your story, death threats, putting in 100 grand, having to pay the bills, someone's about to buy your club, fantastic, I've done my best for that club, I'm walking away, and then they pull out, and then something else happens and they pull out. For you to stick by this club and put your money where your mouth is and put your wife through the pressures that you and your wife were going through when you're meant to have a nice, happy retirement, is extraordinary.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, a lot of people think that I've just got this insatiable appetite for work. My dad, again, bless him, said there's only 3 ways you can ever be successful. The first one is to work hard. Second one is to work hard. And the third one is to work hard.
Yep.
And I think that, I understand that now, because if you have an incredible work ethic, you can be taught
everything else.
Any skill that you need
Absolutely.
of your chosen specialist subject to help you become successful. You could be a child protege, on the other hand, who doesn't have to work, and you'll never be successful in your own right.
Absolutely.
You'll be successful because somebody else has planted, has given it to you. So that is my, one of God's greatest gifts to me.
Who brought Eddie Howe in to be the manager of Bournemouth Football Club?
So this was part of the consortium at the time when, of course, decisions were, having to be made to, change the management with lots, we were in a perilous state. When I, first got involved, we were in Division 1. Yeah. Kevin was the manager, and we were relegated on the last day of that first season that I was chairman. Another irony here, it was the day of my daughter's wedding. So during the week, Radio Solent had this phone in. Would the chairman go to Carlisle or would he go to his daughter's wedding?
Which one did you go to?
Well, of course, Carlisle.
Did you go?
No, I'm only joking.
I wouldn't put it past you, to be fair.
But Radio Solent were brilliant because they delivered me a single frequency earpiece that I had in my ear. And as I'm sat in front of you, true as I'm sat here today, I'm walking my daughter down. The result comes from Carlisle that we drew 1-1, and the bottom side, Cheltenham, beat the top side away, and we were relegated. I'm the most emotional person God's put on the planet. I burst into tears. Everybody present at the wedding thinks I'm crying because I was giving my daughter away. I've been trying to fucking give her away for about 5 years. But and that's, that you just think, what is happening to my life here?
Yeah.
Everything I'm doing, is conspiring against me. And funny enough, that day at my wedding, Kevin's father, John Bond, his mum, his sister Tony, his wife Trina were with me at the wedding. So, this suddenly became more like a funeral, than a wedding in the end, because, they realised that, their son had just, been manager of a club that's relegated. What's happening for his future?
Yeah, okay.
So, oh my God, you couldn't write this story. In fact, I know I just have. But
it's funny, that is called Determined. Jeff Mostyn.
I'm not even sure whether I put that in the book. Right. This is, ladies and gentlemen, there's a second book in the making here. It might turn out to be a Mr. Man book, but at least this one's got a place on the bookshelf. So coming back to Eddie, and you asked me the question, and probably I'm surprised even at my age I can still remember the question. Let alone where am I? I woke up. My God, I've just woken up in this.
I'm over here, Jeff.
Yeah, woke up in this dark room with a pair of cans on and a fucking mic stuck in front of my mouth. So, Eddie, and this was, I think, the turning point of the football club's history.
Yes.
He built a house for a guy called Maxim Demin.
Yes.
Maxim, as history has it, became owner of the football club.
So just to let people know, we're talking about Eddie Mitchell here, and not Eddie Howe.
Yes.
Yeah. So Eddie Mitchell brought in Maxim
Demin,
who was the Russian.
Russian.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. What year?
2011.
11. Okay.
Yeah. So I was introduced to Maxim by Eddie, with a view to Maxim investing in the football club.
Okay.
It was a question of where he was going to invest and how.
Okay.
So that was the time when Eddie exercised his additional 1%.
Okay.
Which I'd forgotten all about. So he obviously now is the major shareholder, and he can make the decisions. But the one decision he couldn't make was for me to sell my shares.
Yep, the 49.
The 49.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't matter, who you are. You cannot force a shareholder to sell the shares.
Yep.
And I decided that, having been bitten once by Alistair Saviamutu and Paul Baker, that I wasn't prepared to sell my shares until I knew the person that was going to buy my shares
was the real deal.
Yeah. So suddenly we've got these two Muppets, from, Lancashire. Well, certainly one, I'll, reiterate that, I still have, great respect for Paul Baker.
Yeah.
But here's a Russian that, I've only met on a couple of occasions. And whilst I understand his wealth, what is he going to do with it? Why is he going to do with it? Is it another toy? Yeah. A lot of people go shopping for a football club nowadays, contrary to popular belief, in Hamleys on Regent Street, because you can buy toys there.
Yeah.
And, toys have Premier League names to some owners. So I wanted to make sure, he was the real deal. He was more than the real deal. He became a really dear friend of mine. His parents, bless them both, were almost my surrogate parents. Such was our relationship. And we suddenly found this inner sanctum of, Eddie Mitchell, myself, Neil Blake, Jason Tyndall and Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
And then later...
That's a good combo, by the way.
Oh, my God.
When you look back, that is a proper combo.
It's absolutely
fantastic.
Formidable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you look at how insecure, clubs are now, with managers, owners, chief executives... and then Richard Hughes joined our little inner sanctum, once he became the technical director. Yeah. So in my book, I've acknowledged that, without Eddie introducing Maxim, the club may not be in the position it is now.
Okay.
And I never take credit for anything that I don't believe I'm responsible for, even though people know I saved the club twice. First of all, I bought the football club, and then with Gerald Krasner's famous nod, I saved it again. Yeah. I still believe that without Maxim, and Maxim I remember saying to me once that, Jeff, even in Russia we build houses from the ground up. When I was lavishing him with praise, he wanted to reciprocate with what he thought I had done and my legacy for this football club, which I really appreciated. So you asked me the question, when did I actually have a vision that the club could go forward? It was then. Adam said, we need a manager. We can't afford a manager. So we've got somebody who has the potential to be a manager because he's got Bournemouth through and through, and that's Eddie Howe. Eddie's been with us since about the age of 6. You know, went to Pompey for a couple of years, did his had his bad injury, came back. And of course, I first met him in October 2016 when he was working under Kevin Bond. So there's Rob Newman.
2016?
Sorry, 2006. I beg your pardon. Thank you. Just keeping you alive.
Keep me on my toes.
So there was Rob Newman, assistant manager, and then, you know, Eddie was looking after the kids. So, you know, you knew that if you cut Eddie in half, you know, AFC Bournemouth, you know, was literally tattooed, you know, around his bloodstream. So we gave him the opportunity. And of course, again, the rest is history. You know, he kept the club up, eventually went to Burnley. There were a few politics, you know, in that, which, you know, out of respect, Eddie was the chairman at the time. I stepped down after the administration to become vice chairman. Because I felt it was the honourable thing to do, having put the club into administration. Through no fault of my own. You know, it wasn't anything operational that we could have saved. It was the bundle of debt.
It was the right move.
It was the right move.
Absolutely.
And in fact, that move was, you know, probably far more, maybe the best decision I'd made to date. Better, you know, better than buying the club, because that was with my heart. The decision I made with the help of the board members at the time, Peter Schofield, I think needs a mention at this stage, it was made with my head. It was the only thing to do. So I was introduced to Maxim, built up a relationship with him, and in late 2011, I sold him my shares of the football club, continued, you know, in my role as vice chairman, and, you know, which I was, you know, thrilled to do, which was a unanimous decision. Neil Blake continued as chief executive. And then in 2013, quite randomly, Maxim bought Eddie Mitchell's shares. So bought him out of the football club. He was almost gone in a day. And
so he now has 100%
100%.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, 17th of September 2013, just a few days before my birthday.
It's actually my birthday.
Is it?
September 17th. What are you?
Mine the 21st.
Is it?
So
Virgos.
2 Virgos.
Yeah, mate.
My God. I mean, excuse me, listeners. I've got to reach over this great table here to shake this man's hand.
Special people, Virgos, Jeff.
Yeah, you don't often get 2 Virgos in a, you know, speaking together or even in a club. So I get this phone call in the morning. Chef, it is Maxim. I'm not. That's the end.
Was he Welsh?
No, that's lovely. I've replied. That's lovely, Maxim. How is things? And Maxim said, Jeff, I am talking. You're listening. That was verbatim.
Okay.
He said, congratulations. You are the new chairman of the football club. Once again, I learned 2 words from Eddie Howe. He said, shoe in. And it was a shoe-in. So I'd said to him, first of all, which is why he said, I'm talking, you're listening. How can you have a board meeting when I'm not there? You know, there's you, there's Neil, there's Eddie, and there's Jason. I'm in Bournemouth. And that's when he said, you're listening, I'm talking. And he said that was the proudest day of my life. They all came back a couple of days later, and we had a breakfast at Rick Stein's.
Lovely.
I was in tears.
I bet you were.
You know, my emotions were unbelievable.
You're an emotional human being anyway.
Oh, my God.
I'd imagine that would have been relief and all sorts of
It was just
happiness.
Unbelievable that they had the confidence in me still to be the chairman of this football club And, obviously with Eddie, there were a few issues that
Eddie
came
Mitchell.
up. That everybody's aware of, the supporters and the run-ins with different people. And he just felt that, right, enough was enough. That's his prerogative. And, I won't go into, anything that was done behind closed doors, especially out of respect for Eddie.
Yeah.
And I was just elated that
They called
after
you back
all these years, they
chairman.
called me back. So,
Wonderful.
And I had my birthday. We played Sunderland away. The girls in the boardroom had made a birthday cake for me, which was amazing. This was, in fact, I think we play Sunderland in the not too distant future away. That will be the first time we played them away since since I became chairman. We drew the game 3-3 with an own goal from Jonathan Woodgate. Which was amazing, which I reminded him when he became
manager at the club. That's right.
He said, "How did I get the job?" I said, "Because you scored that equaliser."
How much did Maxim Demin pay you for your 49%?
That would remain confidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know how much he paid Eddie Mitchell for his 51%?
And again, that would I would only have, because there's non-disclosure
yes, I understand.
agreements.
I respect that.
But Maxim made one pledge to me.
Yes.
That he never ever let me down. He said, "You will always be looked after.
Lovely.
This is not a transaction that I'm buying your shares. While I am the owner of this football club, you will always be respected and you will always be looked after." And till the day he sold the football club, officially in October 2022, he kept his word. And what an honour, what a privilege for me to be chairman of this incredible football club. There are only 20 people at any one time that are chairman of a Premier League football club. It doesn't matter. You could be chairman of Shell, you could be chairman of ICI, British Airways, but only 20 Premier League chairmen. And Maxim Demin and the board and his supporters backed me and also Neil Blake to continue as chief executive. And on the basis that if it's not broken, don't fix it.
So when you look at Maxim's role when he came in on board with Bournemouth Football Club, what deal did he put on the table to say that you knew he was the right person mentally, to know that he's the right man, to know that he's definitely back in Bournemouth. He lived down here in Sandbanks. But actually, how much was he putting on the table to say, right, we're going to grow this club? There is 10 mil or 20 mil or 30 mil. Was there a number that...
There was no number.
But did you know how wealthy he was?
I knew how wealthy he was. Probably not quite to the extent of, his, sort of vast array of investments.
Yeah.
But I knew he was wealthy enough because we sat down and spoke about where he wanted to take the football club. And there was never this talk at the time, that, we're going to the Premier League.
Yeah.
The first thing was to stabilise the football club, then invest in Eddie and Jason on the pitch. And people have often criticised Maxim because, especially in the wake of Bill Foley and this, his new regime, where we've now completed this incredible performance centre.
Unreal.
Bill, has the visions for expanding the stadium rather than building a new stadium. But I remember at a fans forum, people sort of just getting a little bit agitated and a bit excited that nobody could get a ticket. So the first thing was, when are we going to get a new stadium? When are we going to get a new stadium? And I just made this sort of off-the-cuff comment that... I said, we do understand everybody's frustration. We do need this extra investment. People often say, what's the turnover of the football club? I used to say that the broadcasting money plus a Mars bar and a Kit Kat, because in practical terms, that's what it is.
Didn't
compared
touch the size, does it?
to, Manchester United, they will earn more money on one match day than we'll earn all season. So I just said, what you have to understand is this football club, we have a duty to you, our fans. We're only the custodians. I learned from James Beattie many years ago, Beats was my next door neighbour, that chairmen come and go, directors come and go, players come and go, managers come and go. The only common denomination of loyalty are supporters. You get a footballer kissing the badge. the next week he'll kiss somebody else's badge. I've often joked and said some of them will kiss anything as long as it's got the king's head on and it folds up and goes in a back pocket.
And it's pink.
Yeah, and it's pink. Yeah. Are there any other colours?
No, I think that's it.
yeah. So, that's being cynical, but with the egotistical world that you find, that is also a fact. So I just said the one thing that I know and Maxim knows and Neil Blake knows is that if you build a new stadium, unless somebody that's present at this fans forum can tell me something different, we have never seen a seat in a new stadium jump up and score a goal that keeps you in the Premier League. But we have seen footballers do that.
Yes.
And that was my interpretation of why Maxim only wanted to invest in keeping this football club at the highest level of football globally, a member of the elite Premier League.
Yeah.
And nobody should ever be critical of that. And what you also have to remember is that it was Maxim that bought the training ground that is now the performance centre.
So he had the vision to buy that, and that used to be an old golf club called Camford Golf Club.
Camford
Magna.
Camford Magna.
Yeah, but that was sat on for a long time, wasn't it? And I think the frustration, what happened was the fans knew that you'd bought that site, which was a wonderful site, but everyone's like, why are they not investing money in there now? All this money coming from the Premier League, why are they not invested in there now? And I understand why, because maybe they needed even bigger, deeper pockets with someone with an even better vision that Maxim had, which is now Bill Foley.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, remember that, it's very easy to, go into I'm only using the house as an analogy because of what we've spoken about with Eddie.
Yeah.
You can go into an empty house and, even if you're not an interior designer, you can have a vision as to how you want to turn it because it's already built. So it was easier in the nicest possible way for Bill to have a vision. Because
the foundations,
the house was already there. All he had to do was build something, on it. So, Maxim had done an amazing job, but still, because players were costing more, wages were costing more. So whereas when we bought the land, it may well have been a vision that will get that started, it suddenly became a priority to keep putting money onto the pitch.
Yeah. But also on that point there, Jeff, it's interesting because you've gone from all the divisions, all of a sudden out the blue, you jumped into the Premier League. That's a different ball game, but you've kept the same team around you, from the commercial director to all the different directors in the same team. You've gone into a whole different league. Yeah. That must have been a shock when you now start seeing the finances that are coming in, but to keep your team in that Premier League, you've got to pump the money back into the players.
You have. As I said earlier, it all finishes up in the dressing room. Whether it's with the players, the manager, the staff. I mean, we've got more sports scientists as I sit in front of you today than we had supporters when I bought the football club. We've got analysts, sports scientists, nutritionists, anything with an ist on the end. We've got 10 of them.
That's right.
And that's what you need to run a Premier League football club. Yeah. It was a quantum leap. But what I like to think, I created along with the executive team, and I've said in my book, is we created 2 dressing rooms. First of all, we had a siege mentality because, we had 10 points deducted the first season, then 17 points.
10 points?
10 points from the administration.
Yes, yeah.
17 points the next season, so it's a total of 27 points. And then we had almost a 12-month transfer embargo. So we couldn't even improve the team, which is where Eddie was a genius in improving players.
Yes.
The 4 inches between their ears, most importantly, getting them to believe they were good enough for the next division, where normally you see every transfer window, clubs are refreshing. You need new blood in, otherwise you tread water and relegation looms. So, Eddie is, the master of...
Eddie Howe
as he's
is
done,
unreal.
You look at Joel Linton, you look at Almiron, who, I know has moved on. 2 players. I mean, Joel Linton couldn't hit a goal if the goalkeeper was on the floor with a blindfold on. suddenly he's
Banging
just
goals, yeah.
unbelievable.
Eddie gives lots of people confidence. He has this aura of respect around him. I've also got to give a shout out to Jason Tyndall as well, because they're a proper pair. They're not. It's not just the Eddie Howe show. It's Eddie and Jason, but also rolling back a little bit further as well. Going back to loyalty. There's a guy at Bournemouth Football Club called Rob Mitchell, commercial director, been there for years. Good friend of mine. Massive respect to Rob Mitchell, what he's come through, being loyal with the club all this period and taken through this whole period alongside you and everyone else. It's special. When I look at the 2013, when you've got Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall and you're going through the leagues, talk to me about that moment, that day when you were on telly, live on telly, when you just got promoted in 2015. We're all at the stadium and you go into the changing rooms.
Well, first of all, I just want to endorse your endorsement of Rob.
Yes.
Because Rob was probably the closest person to me in the football club, because my skill set is marketing, selling, marketing. If I've got a mouth and a pair of hands, it'll move. Don't worry. And, I lent my expertise to Rob and his team willingly, because he joined about 18 months after I bought the football club and has remained constant.
Nearly 20 years.
Right through it. Lovely guy, lovely family.
Very good at what he does.
Very good at what he does. But coming back to that, infamous
Rob,
day,
hopefully there's a pay rise there for you, mate.
I hope so as well, mate, because it's not me that's going to give it you this time.
Just shout out to Bill Foley, give Rob Mitchell a pay rise. So 2015, you were at the home game.
Bolton,
Bournemouth get promoted. You in the changing rooms. All the Sky cameras are there, and I watched it again this morning. It is genius. Just explain that moment.
So what happened was I was up in the double box upstairs. So on a match day, normal match day procedure, I look after the boardroom. The away directors, the hospitality with Rosie. So Rosie and I have literally run that, for 17 years, like our home. And I'll come back to what, a very famous chief exec said about that, but keeping on the track. We're upstairs in the box, in the double box, and literally, there's Maxim, every stakeholder is up in this box. Well, within 10 minutes, we've had more shots on target with Vodka than the boys had on the pitch, during the entire 90 minutes against Bolton. I don't know what day it is. And I'm suddenly thinking, shit, I haven't seen the boys. Every match day, my ritual, I go and see them before the game, in the dressing room. Very simple. Wish you lots of luck, boys. Leave. That's Eddie's dressing room. Go into Eddie's office, just inside the tunnel with Eddie and Jason. Just have a catch up. Wish you lots of luck today. Go back to the boardroom. After the game, win, lose or draw, very rare for a chairman, apart from when they win. Always go in, give everybody one of Jeff's famous cuddles. They need to know they've got your support more when they lose than when they win. Anybody can walk in there. So I'm still upstairs thinking, shit, I've not seen the boys. Unknown to me at that very minute, Sky cameras have gone in the dressing room and said, guys, we're live on air. You can do whatever you want. You can take your clothes off. You can swing from the chandelier, but you cannot use any expletives. I don't hear this message. I leap literally down 3 flights of stairs, burst the doors open, and the next thing is, I fucking love you boys. With that, it's just off the Richter scale. They've lifted me up.
That's right.
Callum's given me the biggest spanking of my life. And a funny anecdote to that was at the...
Callum Wilson.
At the awards ceremony, which, we had at the BIC. So this is the end of season dinner. I always used to open it. So all the staff are there, Maxim, families. And I'd used to say, well, I've got so many people to thank, for this incredible season. But I want to start off tonight by thanking one person in particular. And of course, everybody's thinking, oh my God, it's going to be me. It's going to be me. I said, the person I want to thank more than anybody else in this room is Callum Wilson. I said, Cal, me and Rosie have been married 44 years. And she now knows spanking's normal.
Quality, is that your one-liner?
That's my one. And it was
Genius.
it was absolutely. That's how we opened.
Oh.
It was just absolutely brilliant.
Unreal.
But I literally, it just went absolutely
It was bonkers, wasn't it?
viral.
Yeah.
I had no idea that it was live, because I'd missed all the introductions. But when I look back, I started off the next day thinking this is the most embarrassing moment of my life.
No.
It's now turned out to be wherever I am in the world doing any public speaking, I'm introduced with that on the screen.
Yeah, amazing.
Because what it showed was
All the players,
the love,
I agree.
the love
Yeah.
and the camaraderie that I had with my players, with the playing staff, and with Eddie and Jason. And I was literally, blown off my feet, by the love that was in that dressing room and on the pitch.
Yeah.
So it will literally, live with me forever.
Yeah.
And you just couldn't write that script.
You couldn't.
I did say that it was the impossible. We achieved the impossible, and by the very nature of the interpretation of impossible, you can't achieve it, but we did.
Yeah.
And I remember having a microphone stuck in front of my face on the pitch that day, and they said, "Jeff, what's going through your mind now?" And I don't know where I dragged this from, but I said, if Hans Christian Andersen could ever have written a fairy story about football, this would have been it.
Yeah.
This should never have happened.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to implode in the championship, and we kept winning.
Yeah.
But this run can't keep going on. And it went on and on and on. And finally we did it. And when you think back to 2008-9, when we put the club into administration, that only 6 years later we were going to be in the Premier League, you would have been sectioned.
Yeah.
Literally. If any, I'm a great believer in dreams, live your dream, but be realistic. But fantasies, very seldom come true.
Yeah.
Dreams can come true. But we turned everybody's fantasy into reality. And I remember walking around the pitch that night in tears from the minute I put my feet on the hallowed turf of the Vitality Stadium. As I'm walking round, there were people who were older than me in floods of tears. And I've only got to see a tear to, react. It's like a mirror reaction.
Yeah.
And I wasn't crying for me. I was crying for them. That suddenly I cast my mind back to buying the club, which was the worst thing I'd ever done in my life, to the nod, which I shouldn't have done because Rose and I had said we weren't going to do it. And with great team effort, we created these 2 dressing rooms. And I've said this in my book. I'm so proud of this. We had Eddie and Jason's dressing room downstairs. We had our dressing room upstairs that me and Neil had created with our executive team. But this is the key to AFC Bournemouth. Even today, we had one common heartbeat that brought both those dressing rooms together.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no other club like it. And that night, the heartbeat shone like a star for the supporters who had lived this hardship, if you like, for over 100 years. Those that, were present that night, where you'd spent all these years, bar I think 3 years in Division 1 and Division 2. Yeah. We were now going to be rubbing shoulders with the glitterati, with the elite of world football, not just local football. And our job was to try to ensure that, we had a team that were going to be capable of retaining our position, because there was no thought of, are we going to go to Europe? The nearest we were getting was probably playing cows. So it was stable, staying in and that's what we did for 5 years. That me and Eddie have spoken many times. We believe that was a greater achievement than getting there in the first place. You look at Notts Forest, Leeds, 20 years or so, 20 years to get back to the Premier League. after we were relegated. We were back the season after we were relegated, or 2 seasons.
Isn't it crazy? Like the home games, like pound for pound, the Vitality Stadium is fantastic. Pound for noise, 11,000 people in there, 11,700, packed every week. You're close to the pitch. You've got a manager everyone wants to play for, Jason and Eddie.
Yeah.
You've got up the board where you are. Everyone's loving you and your energy and everything else. All the fans have come together. You cannot beat that. Like those 3 things, the team, the manager, yourself, the fans, you communicating with the fans. And now I look in as a massive West Ham fan and I see the disconnect between David Gold and the fans and the stadium we're in. We're in a 60,000 capacity stadium. The players aren't playing for the manager's getting sacked. Everyone's upset with David Gold as the chairman. Like, there's lessons to be learnt here. Like, anyone out there, to have a British chairman, and nothing against foreign chairmen, I think they're fantastic as well, but to have a British chairman with everyone behind you for the one mission of that football club. And that's how it used to be years ago. And I feel like we lost that in the Premier League right now for many years. And as a fan, you're getting a disconnect via the chairmans, which is giving you a disconnect to your club, which you're also disconnected because the atmosphere is not good at the London Stadium. Like, all these things are happening right now, and I know a lot of my family and a lot of West Ham fans are what's the word? Let me just take a breather. When you've been supporting a club for so many decades, from your great granddad, your granddad, your dad, and we're all West Ham fans, I think this has got to be one of the most, the point where this is the most amount of frustration we've ever had as a club. You as a chairman of a club, if you were to be a chairman of West Ham, what's the first few things you would do?
Well, it would be, wrong for me to be talking about, what I would do, because it gives the clear impression that David is not doing, what I would do, and what he's doing is wrong, and what I'm doing is right.
Let's go on.
But all I can only say what I did at Bournemouth, what I felt was right. When I bought the football club, there were 2 decisions that had to be made, literally outside of the football club per se. The first one was, do we keep the academy and do we keep the community trust? And that was going to be a cost of about $500,000 a year.
Steve Cuss?
Steve Cuss.
Yeah, brilliant.
Steve I adore.
Amazing human.
In fact, my current role at the football club is I'm ambassador for the Community Sports Trust. So I work closely with Steve. We made the decision to keep them, even though we couldn't afford it, because that $500,000 could have gone to paying the wages, for the staff and the first team. So we made that decision. That's because it's a community. I understand that Bournemouth, the AFC Bournemouth, is part of this incredible community. And, bearing in mind, I'm a born and bred Manc, but I like to think I'm now, after 17 years, suddenly accepted, within the Bournemouth community, as a local, which I'm really proud of. So I go back to what James Beattie said to me: the only loyal people, life, and you've just alluded to it, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, are the supporters. So the first thing you have to do is engage with the supporters. I was able to engage with ours in a far greater way than probably any other Premier League chairman. Because of the size of the football club, so it's easier to. And I'm trying to be as generous as I possibly can with my interpretation here. That I had the ability to hug, every supporter that I can on a Saturday, and they've got used to that now. Whereas, and I know most of the names. I know all the names of the staff. I know all the names of the players. Again, without being disrespectful, when you've got 76,000 supporters, does Jim Radcliffe actually know the names of all the members of staff and all the names of the players, let alone who are the supporter groups? The answer is no.
It's half the staff, so it makes it easier, doesn't it? Just for that reason. Do you know what, Jeff? I'm not going to know all the names. I'll get rid of half of them. That makes it easier for me.
Yeah. Actually, my name's Peter, Jim. Oh, sorry. Yeah, right. You're gone as well. Yeah. Where's Jeff? So I think that, I made a point of, just being that chairman, the people's chairman. And I like to think that that's who I'm recognised as. I remember a young girl, I think, when I was in schools with Steve, and so with the Community Sports Trust, and Steve said, we're thrilled to have the chairman here today, Jeff Mostyn, and are there any questions? This little girl puts her hand up, and she said, Jeff, what is a chairman? I thought, Jesus, nobody's ever asked me that before. I hope the board don't ask me that. I've got away with it for 17 years without them knowing what I do. So I just very quickly, I am quite quick on my feet. I turned round and I said, I probably liken myself to your headmaster.
Okay.
So the headmaster has responsibility for making sure your teachers are giving you the best education, which I know in this school they're incredible. They're all stood in front of me. And that you get the best education, possible. So I said, what I do at the football club, I've got this incredible executive team, and my chief executive, Neil Blake, has the delegated responsibility for running the club on a day-to-day basis. I'm there to support Neil and all the rest of the team. But what I do every day that I'm at the club, which is quite rare for a chairman, I said that because the club is almost on one floor, I can go into every single office and tell everybody in the football club how special they are and how valued they are. Then they get a Jeff hug.
Yeah, amazing.
Now I said, if I did nothing else as a chairman, only that would be an intangible benefit that you could never put a price on.
Yeah, great.
And that's what I believe I've done. God didn't give me very much. Only recently found out he was dyslexic because I asked to be 6'5" and he made me 5'6". But that aside, he gave me a shed full of enthusiasm, which I think is God's greatest gift.
Yeah. And the other greatest gift is you giving self-belief into your team.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful gift.
It's making people feel special. I like to think I make everybody I meet on my journey feel special. You can't be everything to everyone. And I remember getting depressed at times when I used to read articles, especially in the struggle days, in the Echo, and then your finger is literally on the keyboard shaking like this because you want to read the comments. Every comment is almost, kill him, get back to Manchester, expletive. And I remember speaking to Eddie one day, and Eddie Howe. And he kind of, he's like my son. And he said to me, Chairman, why do you read the notes? And I said, you can't help it. You want everybody to like you. He said, I'm going to tell you something now. In round figures, and these were the days, we had 20,000 supporters. You could only get 11 in, at one time. But in round figures, 20,000 people. He said 19,980 worship the floor you stand on, and mine.
Agree.
He said, the 20, but they never write in because they love you. They don't need to. The 20 are the keyboard warriors who are all posting under a pseudonym. And he said, Chairman, we could be in the Champions League. You're still going to get that. So stop doing it. And I remember a few years later, Eddie was very low at one stage. This was towards, the latter part. And there was a lot of anti-Eddie comments. The time's, right for him to go. And I just reminded him of the advice he gave me 5 or 6 years earlier.
Tell me the figures when you were in the Championship. The change of revenue, the turnover coming in was X. When you got into the Premier League, what did it jump to that you had that pot to play with?
Oh, it's an absolute quantum leap. You're talking of 80 million, 80 million plus. Again, I know all the figures are, in the public domain. Now it would be, they call the Championship playoff a 200 million pound match. I don't know where they get those figures from. Maybe that's over the period of 3 years because you're almost guaranteed the parachute payments. So, but certainly in the first year you're 80 million better off, which is why I said to you earlier, our revenue was the broadcasting plus a Mars bar and a Kit Kat.
Yeah, okay.
Now it's grown dramatically because we've got a lot of extra partners due to the new ownership and Rob's hard work that we didn't actually have before. So there was so many different things that we had to do. I remember our Premier League induction, because, you know, we were right at the sort of end of the season. You had about 12 weeks to suddenly change the face of the stadium. These were all the requirements. Yeah. We built the pavilion, you know, which had...
At the back of the club, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a mini-me. If you compare, say, you know, Tottenham's or West Ham's or Manchester City's.
They're like container units you built, wasn't it?
It was incredible. And that was Darren Booth, you know, shout out to him, you know, who masterminded that, getting it built in no time at all.
I remember.
But it was like a mini-me version of a Cairo chamber, you know, an underwater treadmill, an altitude chamber. Yeah. Whereas Man City might have 8, you know, we had, you know, what they threw out, you know, 2 seasons ago, but it was revolutionary for us. So it was incredible. Yeah. But we had to change the infrastructure of the stand. So the main stand, we had to create a bigger press area for UK. Yeah. And then in the East Stand for overseas, we had to have underfloor cabling for global television. We'd only just spent a fortune on upgrading our floodlights from League One to the Championship. Each one has a different lux requirement. Yeah. So, okay, come on. Are you impressed with that?
This is good.
Oh, my God.
This is good information,
you know, I've just remembered this lux. I don't know where I dragged that from. So I'll check out what it is in a minute. So we just replaced the Championship floodlights. So we had to increase that for about 24 different remote cameras for international and UK broadcasting. And then we had to have a medical centre. We had to have a separate entrance for the players who used to go in through the main door. Right, yeah. We had to have a new press centre. We had to have press interview rooms for global television. So each one named, you know, BBC, ITV, you know, Sky, whatever they were, all just plug in the cable. You know, whereas before we've got 600 weight of cable on somebody's back, you know, and, you know, a camcorder that weighed 15 ton. All that needed to be done. And then the classic was we needed to have undersoil heating. And Richard Scudamore's written in my book. So Richard is Mr Premier League, as everybody knows. He was down at the induction and, you know, said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to have this. You're going to have that. This is so-and-so, so-and-so. You can't do that. You can't do that. And we have a match day here. Need another medical person. Oh, my God. It was like, you know, War and Peace. And that was just the first chapter. Then he said, and now we're going to need undersoil heating as well installed. All this is within this 12-week
12-week period of going up in May to then the season starting in August. Yeah. Wow.
So any questions? I put my hand up. Jeff, what would you like to say? Oh, I said, Richard, you can forget the undersoil heating. I said, do you know where you are? I said, this is Bournemouth, for Christ's sake. I said, we've got a microclimate here. So he said, sorry, I don't think you heard the question. So, Jeff, you'll require undersoil heating. Yeah. That was the end of the conversation. He's actually written in my book, and he's actually mentioned that, because whenever we got together after that, and I didn't really know him at that time, but I thought, no, I'm not having that. Yeah. But pitch up, undersoil heating. It costs, you know, so many. I think it's something like 30 million if a game is cancelled. In potential broadcasting revenue. I don't know what the figures are now, they're astronomical. So you could never, even in Bournemouth, it might not have snowed in Bournemouth, you know, for 6,000 years. I'm not taking a risk that it's not going to snow next season. So that's what it was. All that had to be done, and it was
in a 3-month period.
Yeah, and we were there. Yeah, I know Luton had, you know, when they were just recently promoted.
Because there was a rumour going around that Bournemouth couldn't get promoted because the stadium was too small.
Yeah, it was literally just people that didn't actually understand. The rules had changed decades before. Okay. I think there was a rule very early on.
Because this is like, because I also going to 2015, I've got something else I want to bring up. It's just triggered my mind. But actually, imagine having your team of people there in place. Your Neil Blake's the CEO, all of a sudden he's jumping into a whole new world of dealing with agents coming to him now, knowing that they've got a pot of 80 million quid going, you need this player, this is the best player in Europe, this is the best player in Great Britain. He had to cut all those. He was the man who was cutting all those deals, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And this is a man who was an ex-policeman back in the day.
It was just,
and he was a chairman of, I think it was Wimborne Town Football Club, Dorchester Football Club, which is a tiny little club around here.
Exactly.
The rise that he's gone, it's been outrageous.
Well, it was
a
learning curve, and I think this is where my greatest strength was being able to help him with my business experience, and the journey. My areas of expertise were totally different to Neil's, and I think had we both been the same, I don't think we could have survived in the same room, for nearly 20 years. So we complemented each other. He looked after the team, along with Richard Hughes when Richard decided to hang up his boots, and Eddie brought him on to the recruitment side. So that's where he was to start, then became technical director. I attended all the EFL meetings during this journey. I attended all the Premier League meetings. I attended the Premier League AGMs. If there was anything, we had issues with financial fair play one season. That took me the best part of 2 years. So I looked after all that. And of course, also because I was elected by all the 20 Premier League clubs to represent them on the FA Council, which was one of the proudest moments of my life. There's the Players' Player of the Year and the Sports Writers' Player of the Year, both huge respect. The only one you want to win, well, you want to win both of them. The one you want to win is the players, because you're elected by your peers. So for me, little Jeff Mostyn to be elected by the Premier League to represent them on the FA Council, that was amazing.
How much of a shock was it for you when you bring in 80 mil? You probably spent, God knows how much you spent, and that's that 12 weeks, and you're left with a pot of money. Was your mindset spend all that money on the players we need to stay up, or was your mindset, can we spend 50%, keep 50% in the bank, because if we get relegated, we've got a parachute, but we've still got 50% left plus the parachute?
Well, I have to say that those decisions were, David Holliday is our finance director. Maxim doesn't need an abacus. Or a computer, or, even a calculator to work out what is necessary. And I think between us all, but Maxim was driving this. So although I was the chairman, this was where Maxim was driving the economy.
Okay.
And we would, Maxim would say, this is what we want, that's what we would deliver. Eddie and Jason, and Richard would come to the board meetings. This is my wish list in every position. That's the same with every club, not just with Bournemouth. But, if they got everything that they wanted, we probably wouldn't have a football club now. So you've got to manage it, professionally, prudently, and make sure that there is sufficient in the system to achieve your goal. There's no point in saving 10 million to lose 80.
Yes. But that's the gamble you take, right?
That's the gamble you take. And that's why clubs have run into financial issues in the Championship, because they're trying to get to the Holy Grail, which is the Premier League.
Dangerous game.
So dangerous. I think we ran the club really well.
I think you did as well.
And I'm only using, incidentally, 80 million just as a, a figure of speech, as opposed to it being an accurate figure. So I think we ran it, as well as any club could, and we competed really well. But we still had that siege mentality. We had players from Division 2 to the Division 1 to the Championship. Those, when we got to Division 1, you're not good enough. We'll show you we are. We got to the Championship, same players, Pewey, Matty Ritchie, Tommy, Frano. You're not good enough for the Premier League. We'll show you.
Tommy
Elphick, what a man. Simon Francis. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. So, I think the core, and we're doing the same now. What Andoni has done is absolutely incredible. And, I don't want to upset chairmen up and down the country, but I learned very quickly, probably, at my own cost, that the most important person in a football club is definitely the manager.
Yeah.
And I think the more people that recognise that, the more you can sit on your ego and squash it. And help develop the only thing that can keep you alive. So I'm a successful businessman, I buy a football club that's almost a car crash. Tony Husband were walking around the stadium, my first interview with BBC South Today. Tony, Jeff, so why, this club has suffered so many administrations, bucket collections. Why do you think you can change the fortunes of this football club? Tony, come on, I'm a financial advisor. I'm going to create financial stability. 9 months later, I put it in administration. Things out of your control. The one thing that business people that are just randomly buying a football club don't understand is that no matter what kind of executive you have, and we had the greatest, for me, I still call them my staff. I know they're not, but that'll be with me forever. My executive team, all my staff, from the first person on a steward at the gates of the car park on a match day, they are just as important as the chairman. You just have different gift, Jeff. They just have different titles, and they are wonderful. But the only people that matter are the players, because you can have the greatest ideas, the greatest vision. If the team fail on the pitch, your business model fails. Goes the pot, because there's no economy. Rob would be cringing if we got relegated. All those contracts, what's going to happen? Absolutely. Where are we going to get sponsorship? And I've never thought about that once people cross the white line, you could be Bill Gates. You're completely and utterly out of control.
Do you remember how much a player was getting in the Championship, and then you signing new players, what their wages were on a week? And did that cause a problem that the Championship players, knowing that what he's on is a massive difference?
Well, I think, again, I'm not going to put, exact figures on it.
Roughly.
For understand, or even roughly.
Get him one of those Russian vodkas. We'll get this out of him in a minute.
Hang on a minute.
That's half a pint of water straight vodka, Jeff. Mate, you're fine, mate. You're in good company here.
Honestly, If the listeners are like, I'm just struggling a little bit. I've only just picked up my water glass, and it's actually sponsored by Smirnoff. It was a massive leap.
Yes.
But I think it's the way that it was managed, and all credit to the staff. People understood, you don't need the brains of an archbishop to realise that, when you're signing a fully fledged Premier League player, Jack Wilshere, for instance, comes in, and you've got, somebody earning a tenth of that. You can't say to the person, he's on the same wages as you. Jack wouldn't even, get out the car.
Agree.
So it was a question.
But I remember him coming in on 100 grand.
Yeah.
And when he was playing, no disrespect to Jack, because he was fantastic, but in his day, when he was playing, we're like, this isn't the Jack Wilshere we all knew at Arsenal and at different clubs he was at. It was, he didn't shine at all.
But behind the scenes, what an example.
Yes.
And I always said he was a marquee signing, for us.
What, for off the field, for the younger players coming through?
Yeah,
that's lovely to hear.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I speak highly of all the players.
Yeah.
There's some I probably no names, no patrol. I could have, shot.
Sure.
Or got the laser out.
Did you as a chairman, did you ever clash with Eddie Howe?
No.
I
can honestly say that Eddie and I, over the 17 years that we were together, there was only once in Eddie's room where I can't recall what happened, but I was probably right on the edge when I went in the room. And I'll tell you a story to back up my demeanour, not on that day, but my general demeanour of utmost respect. Something was said, and I literally went out, slammed the door, and Neil Perrott was outside the door, and he said, "Oh, what was that about?" Of course, I ignored him, gave him the death stare, and just carried on walking. And it was almost like his door went, a revolving door, and it was incredible that on Monday Eddie came to see me, and he said, "Chairman, can I just have a quick word?" And we, I'm not going to, say, Eddie was apologetic. We were mutually apologetic to each other about this one incident.
Yes.
So where my respect came was very, very early. And I always use this as I think, a really good analogy. Eddie is a football manager, head coach. I'm a financial advisor. I can't ever imagine Eddie coming up to my office upstairs at the football club while I never had a client, but hypothetically giving somebody financial advice. And Eddie just coming through the door saying, oh my God, why are you giving him that kind of advice? So why would I go down to Eddie Howe's office
and try
and
to
say,
give him,
why have we picked that formation today? Why did you leave these 5 people out? And that was why we had so much respect. And I'll fast forward, if I may, to when I stepped down. The most
2022?
2022.
Yeah.
October. So December the 22nd officially was when
How did you feel that day?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Emotion. Oh my God. It's still my family.
Yeah.
Even today. You know, my love for our incredible supporters will remain with me forever. And I've dedicated my book, you know, to my family and the supporters. But that day it was so low. And I remember being in the dressing room and, you know, the boys all wishing me, you know, good luck, standing in the tunnel and just bursting into tears. And Chris Gearish, who's director of operations there now, was probably cuddling me for God knows how long. And in fact, so long that Rose sent somebody down from the boardroom to find out where I was. I was just emotionally, you know, distressed. Excuse me.
Yeah, mate. No, take your time.
Now you can see my, you know, just the emotion of who I am.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's no problem at all, Jeff. Take your time, mate.
So that year, I get invited to Qatar for the World Cup. And I was invited, you know, by the family over there, the royal family, along with Richard Scudamore, Steve Parish. There was eight of us in this sort of elite group, and one very famous manager. So again, no names, no patrol. So just like I've showed you my emotion, this was all raw.
Yeah.
And I literally burst into tears. And, you know, suddenly, oh my God, Jeff, you know, what is it? And I said, what is really strange about being a chairman of a football club is that's who you're known as. Whenever I was introduced to anybody, this is the chairman of AFC Bournemouth, then I would have to say, oh, hi, I'm Jeff Mostyn. Yeah. You know, it would have been nice if it would all in one breath. Yeah. So it is your identity. Yes. So I felt like the emperor with no clothes. Who am I now? I'm no longer a chairman, you know, of a Premier League football club or indeed of anything. You know, what happens next? Yeah. And the words back were just, it was like having an exorcism. I'm going to say two things to you. The second is more important than the first. The first, you're one of the most loved and respected chairmen in football. Forget the Premier League. And the reason is, whenever you come downstairs after a game to a dressing room or to the manager's room, you never, ever speak unless you're spoken to. That in itself is worthy of respect, where so many come down, all guns blazing, especially if it's been a bad day at the office. Yeah. But, and this was where the second part came in, we don't love and respect you because you're chairman of AFC Bournemouth. We love you because you're Jeff Mostyn.
Lovely.
And it was an absolute exorcism of the highest order that I went upstairs, phone rose, you know, almost in tears, but said that this is, you know, what has just made me feel better. And he followed up by saying, if you're ever lonely for the rest of your life, just stand outside the front door of the Vitality Stadium on a match day. You'll never be lonely again. And whenever I'm at the match, I just want to spend time with our supporters, the staff. Obviously, the players are changing, so I don't have the same intimate relationship that I had. But only recently, I was in 1805, the Chinese
Yeah,
restaurant.
yeah.
And when I went in there, Tabs was in there and Antoine Semenier, along with their girlfriends, wives, and there was a couple of other, Alex Scott was in. And Tabs turned around to me and he said, "Oh my God, Chairman, what I love is that tradition in football.
Been passed down, hasn't it?
Passed down, that you will always be chairman to those players, just as Eddie will always be gaffer if he steps foot through the door of the Vitality Stadium, as he will be in Newcastle." And he said, "Oh my God, we haven't seen you for ages. Are you coming to the games?" So I said, "I'm at every game at home, as near as damn it." "Well, we haven't seen it because, out of respect, I don't go in the dressing rooms." So, "Well, where are you?" I said, "I literally just sit behind the dugout." And he said, "Oh, it's amazing." He said, "Are you coming on Tuesday?" And we were playing Brighton. I said, "Of course I am." He said, "Are you coming to Tottenham on Sunday?" I think it was, no, it was the Saturday. So I said, "Of course I am." And Antoine turned round and he said, "Tabs, give him a break. He's actually made more appearances at the Vitality than you have."
Brilliant.
And it was
brilliant.
That was almost a continuation of the dressing room.
Yeah, brilliant.
Which there was that respect and that love.
How good is he?
Oh my God!
Is he going to get snapped up one of the big clubs? He's going. I think he's close to getting. This is a big statement, by the way. World class. But I feel like he's going to be world class.
Yeah. Well, he is.
Semenier.
If you look at the players we lost, who are now playing for Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, we were probably lucky to hold on to him. I'm not part of the inner sanctum, so I won't hazard a guess of how close or how not we weren't to losing him. But you want to. I've learnt now over the years to talk these players down because
don't want anyone to nick them,
in
basically.
my role, one of my roles with the FA was I'm an England ambassador. So I've had the honour and privilege of travelling with the England teams to overseas competitions, and people have always asked me, about Eddie Howe. Because we know that, people were looking at him as a possible England manager. And I used to say, "Oh my God, he's unbelievable. Jeff, what's his greatest strength?" His greatest strength is this insatiable appetite for personal development. That's why players love him, because it'd be like you and your team here. You come in, Billy Big, you know what. I've got the T-shirt, I've done it. Why would they want to listen to you?
Absolutely.
But if you're still learning your skills
every day,
they are going to think, "Oh my God!"
And you bring them on the journey with you.
100%.
And the same as business in here. Like all the 3 business we got with the Bournemouth Sevens Festival, obviously the media company with the podcast, etc. I like to give self-belief to everyone. I love Gen Z. Come through, make them entrepreneurs within your business. So they're taking like an entrepreneur, but they've got no financial risk. And you take them on your journey with you. It's a lovely feeling,
and that's where I was
developing players, like you say.
So Dan Ashworth, who was at that time head of FA development, he actually created the DNA. How United got rid of him, I'll never know. For probably just disagreeing with Amarin being the direct. I don't know the ins and outs. I only surmise like you would. But he used to say to me, he said, "You are just building Eddie up to somebody we're going to have to take." And I said, "Oh my God, Dan, you're not taking me seriously, are you?" He's a complete waste of space. We can't afford to get rid of him. That's the only reason we've kept him. And I'm suddenly realising that, by talking players up, you're attracting
someone to come in.
Antoine, if you're listening, I absolutely love you. And I'm only doing this deliberately so nobody comes in and nicks you.
Hospitality. It's a big thing for you. Tell me around the UK, who has the best hospitality in the Premier League where you feel so welcome?
So I've got, like everybody else, what attracts you about hospitality? Is it glitz, is it glamour, or is it people? So for me, it's the people. So obviously when we play Manchester City, as we are in a couple of weeks' time, they treat me like the Messiah. Again, contributions in my book from Mike Summerby on behalf of the club. And they know I've been a boyhood supporter, since the age of 5. But again, just a little anecdote. The first time we played Man City at the Etihad, as I've just alluded to, go in the dressing room just to wish the boys good luck. And Tommy said, the chairman can just have a quick word. And two of the boys grabbed my arms, and I can't remember who. And he starts to undo my shirt. He said the boys wanted to know if you had a City shirt on. And obviously I didn't. So it's only twice a year.
Tommy Elphick's done a great job for the club as well.
Unbelievable.
What a lovely human being as well.
And Coops.
Yeah.
The two of them together. I'm pleased that they're a pair because that gives them strength.
Tommy's a dad at our school as well. And so we see each other. Lovely fella.
He's just an absolute
kind
gentleman.
human being, isn't he?
He is.
Knows his football.
Inside out. Yeah.
So give me 5 clubs that spring to mind. You go, I love the hospitality there. Which would they be?
So Liverpool, again, comes out of the respect I have for the owners, the Fenway Group, from John Henry, Mike and Tom, and the chief executive, Billy Hogan. Again, I can give you a little anecdote if you want. We lose 9-0.
I remember under Scotty Parker.
Under Scott, a couple of seasons ago. And me and Rose were the only two directors. Well, Rose wasn't a director, but the only two executives, if you like, visiting. So he said, Jeff, it's my daughter's daughter's birthday today. Come and join us on our table. There's only you and Rosie. And they all love Rosie. Every single boardroom we go in, they adore her.
She's lovely, isn't she?
Thank you. And nearly everybody that's written in my book, 30 prospective writers, has written about Rosie. That gives me more pleasure than them talking about me. So
great team. What a great team. 44 years married.
I know.
What a team.
It's incredible.
You don't hear that these days, do you?
44 weeks, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Or hours. If it's been a bad night. Why did I pick her?
The old 10 to 2 at a club. Oh, Jesus, in the morning. What's happened?
Yeah. Why am I still in there? So he said, what are your plans? You're staying over, I assume. I said, yes. I said, we booked to go to San Carlo. So San Carlo in Manchester is one of my favourite restaurants.
Lovely.
Never been to the one in Liverpool, but we had a reservation. That was the end of the conversation. Lose 9-0. He comes bouncing in and he said, I'm just beside myself of all the people to literally have this demolition. You would be the last person. And I know he meant that genuinely, because you can all, bullshit after a game. We're thrilled that you've just beaten us, and then you phone the Samaritans. So nothing was said. We go into San Carlo. Rosie said, are we going out? I said, yes, sweetheart, I just need to get out. Go into San Carlo, manager or whoever it was showed it and said, we've got a lovely table for you this evening, Mr. Mostyn. Wow, that's strange. Like, how does he know my name? And we've got this lovely sort of curved booth. And within a minute, he said, the sommelier will be coming over. So, but before he does, can we offer you a glass of champagne with our compliments? He said, I know it's been a difficult day for you. So I said to Rose, she said, have you met this person before? I said, no, but what a lovely gesture. So we get 2 glasses of champagne. Sommelier comes over, gives me the wine list.
Good striker.
Sommelier. Anton Sommelier.
Sommelier. There you go. We've got a new name for him.
That is brilliant. Oh my God. I've got to get up earlier in the morning to catch you. That's the highlight. I love that. So he said, choose anything you want on there, whether it's sparkling, any wine on that wine list, with the compliments of Billy Hogan and Liverpool Football Club.
Lovely.
That sums up how they are. Brighton. Paul Barber, Tony Bloom, 2 dear friends of mine. Hospitality off the Richter scale.
Lovely.
It's hugs and kisses whenever we go in there, not just from the 2 of them, but all the staff. Crystal Palace, again. I
love Selhurst Park.
Steve,
old school.
Old. That's it.
I love that vibe.
It's absolutely rocking. They are incredible. The boardroom at Tottenham in the new stadium.
You invited myself and Rob Mitchell and you had this most amazing box, which when the stadium opened, I remember going up into this box and you go into this stadium, it's like a mix between an airport and a 5-star hotel mixed with a football stadium. Do you remember going up and like the lifts? And then you go into the box and someone's making sushi and someone's doing cocktails. And this is like, you couldn't have... Daniel Levy, that design, I know he's not with Tottenham anymore, but massive respect to him for the design that he created, spending £1.2 billion on a stadium. He did, but actually to experience it and the atmosphere there, it breaks my heart to say Tottenham's got a good atmosphere as a West Ham fan.
Yeah.
But they have, and I think they've ticked all the boxes.
What a
with that
legacy!
stadium.
What a legacy that
yeah.
man's left.
Yeah, agree.
You know, and it's sad the way things happen, but once the fans turn,
They turn
on the board and hard to get away.
Do you know, interesting with Daniel Levy, is it true that if you wanted a box there, you had to do business with him?
No idea.
I heard you had to be if you're an agent and you want to do business with Daniel Levy, you've got to buy a box on a 3-year contract. Yeah. Or if you're a sponsor, I want a 3-year contract, which is fantastic.
No idea.
Yeah.
Seriously, but I remember my first Premier League shareholders meeting at Rudding Park. So
Rudding Park was that?
So that's in Harrogate.
Okay.
So that's where they have most of the Premier League. It's the AGM in June. So the first person I met there, oh my God, this is a funny story. Sir Chips Keswick. So Sir Chips, absolute blue blood. You know, I mean, just a sort of old school, you know, I'm not sure if he was the governor of the Bank of England, but certainly on the Bank of England, high up, and a great statesman. So I arrive, Richard Scudamore said, come the day before, Jeff, because he said, even with your incredible inbuilt confidence, this will be something new to you. You're going to be with the glory boys of the Premier League, of world football, you know, when the chairman and chief executives of all these incredible clubs are all assembled together, like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, in particular because the table is in the round. Yeah. So I walked through the door, and this, you know, gentleman stood there, a gentleman in every sense of the word, and he said, "Hello, boy, you part of the group?" So I said, "Yes." He said, "It's a Chips Keswick, Arsenal." So I was going Jeff Mostyn ball. You start talking. Yeah. He said, "Come and join me for a glass of wine, old boy." So off I go for a glass of Sav with him. And he said, "How did you get here today, old boy?" So I said, "I flew down, Sir Chips." He said, "Oh my God, jolly good, you brought your own aircraft." I said, "No, on this occasion I used Flybe." And I literally went upstairs to phone Neil Blake. I said, "Fucking hell, mate." I said, "We've arrived. They think I've got my own aircraft." Because you've got David Gold landing, the helicopter on the lawn. Yeah. The late David Gold.
Lovely guy. Do you know that David Gold? He invited me into his box at Upton Park. I said to him, "David, I want to own West Ham one day." He said, "Dodge, you know what you have to do? Earn 100 mil, put 50 mil in the club, because you're going to lose that, and give 50 mil to your family to keep them safe." And I'll never forget those words. Yeah. 2015, before we moved to the London Stadium.
See, I wish he'd have given me advice. Because I'd have given it all to the family. Yeah. You know, I mean, that is it. You know,
but you wouldn't be here to tell the story today, Jeff.
I got out of jail free. Yeah. You know,
I love that. Hold on a minute. Hold that thought. I got out of jail free. That is so true. You could have been in a proper financial. You could have been in financial. There could be financial problems if you hadn't got this get out of jail card.
I mean,
imagine.
Yes, you know, it's hard to.
No.
We made that.
We laugh about it now, but it could have been a completely different ballgame. Yourself and Rosie losing everything you got. And
that's why we made that decision that day not to invest any more money in the club, which I ignored. Why, I don't know. But I was at the Langham Hotel. It was the end of last year, doing a gig with Peter Schmeichel and Michel Roux, and finished the gig. And there's about 250 people there, and it went to a Q&A. The first question was, "Jeff, oh my God, what a story. You have to write a book." And this is why I've actually written a book. She didn't actually, you know, it wasn't just because of her. Yeah. Everybody over the last 10 years has actually said, you need to write a book. It's one of the greatest stories ever told. Yeah. So back to her point, it must have been the best decision you ever made in your life to buy the football club. And I said, I pause, and I just sort of lull everybody into a sense of false security. Let the noise settle. And then I said, without any question whatsoever, it was the worst decision of my life. But I got out of jail free because of the people that I met on the way, in particular, Maxim Demin. Yes. And I said, you have to compartmentalise a decision. If it's the worst one, you can't say it was the best because it had a happy ending. The decision is either right or wrong, and it was wrong. Yeah. And if you think it's right, you'll keep making those mistakes.
Yeah.
So even today, it was the worst decision I ever made that turned out to have the happiest ending because of the incredible people I've worked with and the love of the supporters throughout this journey. They've given me the strength and the determination to leave a legacy that me and my family can always be proud of.
Wow. On that note, Jeff, we're going to finish up now. But my last question to you, what do you want to be known for?
Well, I want to be known as a genuinely honest, good person that did his utmost to make a community proud of him.
Lovely. Jeff, I've absolutely loved this. We could speak, we're speaking now up to 2 hours. I could go on
no way.
and on. Yeah, this is amazing. This is fascinating. Like, talk about eventful lives. This is eventful lives. You have lived an eventful life and you've done it with a smile. And to take Bournemouth Football Club from where you've taken it on -17, to take it all the way through to the Premier League, to take it where it is now with new owners taking it on, who have even deeper pockets than Maxim, taking it to the next level, you've got to be so proud, surely.
Thank you.
So proud.
Thank you. And as I've said, so many people, you know, it's all about the group.
Yeah.
It's all about the team. It's all about everybody in the dark days that donated £1.
Yeah.
You know, or even less, school children with their pocket money.
That's right.
Have helped save this incredible club. And then with the team that we had, with Maxim, with Eddie and Jason, and the people
Everyone's played their part,
everybody, the people that followed,
Yeah.
you know, even those people that came in and were not as successful as Eddie and Jason still played a part,
Absolutely.
you know, in the journey to where it is today.
Yeah.
And all I can do is wish Bill, Jim Frivola, and all the team that are under the new ownership, including the staff that, you know, Bill inherited from me and our executive team, every success for the future.
Yeah.
Keep the club on the upward spiral.
Yeah.
It's just a joy to watch, and it's a joy to see the pleasure it gives the community.
Yeah. You're an absolute legend. You really are. And out there, Bill Foley, for listening out there, let's get a statue of Jeff outside that football club.
It won't be, you know, it won't cost a lot because it's only 5'6".
3'2". Could be anything. Any statue, just get it up there.
Yeah, even a Mr. Man.
Jeff, you're lovely. You're a lovely human being.
What a joy. It's absolutely been an honour and a privilege to share this morning with you and your boys.
Yeah. Very kind of you.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. You're a good man and you're loved by millions, mate.
Thank you.
Wow. Jeff, that was really good. Thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like to see someone on the show, leave a comment below. And if you haven't already, do us a favour, show us a bit of love, press the subscribe button, and it allows us to grow the show even bigger and bigger each week. Nice one.